Year 6. Good morning, and how are you today? Ramadan Mubarak. We're having a review on our lesson today, lesson 11, and we'll look at the student book page 206 to 211 and workbook 180 to 194. We'll have a quick review on units 1 and 2, and we'll be talking about time. Objectives: we're going to be able to tell the time in 12 and 24-hour clocks. We'll convert from one unit of time to another, and of course we'll be able to read and make schedules with timetables. Well, I'm sure you remember how to tell the time, but then this is the face of a digital clock. Sometimes the time could get confusing. So this is the face of an analog clock, and I have illustrated here how to check the time in digital and analog way. Now, if you study this carefully, you will have no confusions checking and knowing your time. Now, the clock is divided into two. From 12 to 6 is the half or the past side, and then from 6 also down to 12 again is the half. So there are two parts to it. Remember that we have the past side 12 to 6 and the to side from 6 to 12. Now, to check the time on the digital, here is something you must know. The digital always has the same hour. Once the hour time is on a particular hour, till that hour ends, the digital time will still keep showing that hour. For example, if the time is 4:20, so that's 20 minutes past 4, the digital clock keeps showing 4:20. When it gets to 6, it shows 4:30. When it gets to 8, it shows 4:40. When it gets to 10, it shows 4:50, and so on. The hour or the hour time does not change until the next hour sets in. The only thing that you noticed has been changing is the minutes. The minutes keep changing, and then the minutes keep increasing when you check the digital time. It will start from o'clock, then to 5, 10, 20, 15, 20, 25, 30, then to 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and 60. That's how the digital time counts the time. Now, for the analog, the hour is going to change. When the hour hand changes is when your minute hand moves into the to side. And where is your to side? The to side is between 6 and 12, or a minute after 6 to a minute to 12. I mean, when the long hand has moved away from 30 by 1 minute, and it is by 1 minute away from 12. The hour will change when you tell the time in an analog clock. For example, right now it's 4 o'clock. When the hour and the minute hand moves to 20, we'll say the time is 20 minutes past 4. But when the minute hand moves to 7, we will say it is 25 minutes to the next hour. The next hour is 5. 25 minutes to 5. If it is between 12 and 3, whenever the minute hand is between 12 and 3, you're still free to say it's 5 minutes past 4, 10 minutes past 4, 15 minutes past 4 or quarter to 4, 20 minutes past 4, or even half past 4. But the moment it shifts away from 6 to the next minute, you say it is 29. Now at this point, you notice that the time for the analog, the minute starts reducing till you get to 12. So at that point, you say the time is 29 minutes to the next hour now, to 5. So when it is on the to side, it will read to the next hour. But on the past side, it will still read past that hour. I hope you understand this. Now, I'd like you to understand the AM and PM time. I'm going to tell you or explain to you about 12 and 24-hour time. But before I do that, it is very important for you to know how the AM and PM time is, or when is AM and when is PM. You know there are 24 hours in a day, right? And we have the first 12 hours and the second 12 hours. When does the first 12 hours start? It starts from 12 in the midnight, when probably you are deep asleep, up until, do you know the time when the second prayer of the day is being called? That's close to midday, right? Good. Now from 12 in the midnight up until that hour when the second prayer of the day is being called is the first 12 hours of the day. Now once it is midday, that's 12 o'clock. Once it is 12 o'clock, then the PM time starts. But from 12 in the midnight to the period when the second prayer of the day is being called, that's before 12 o'clock. That's, we can say, up until 1 minute before 12 midday. We call those times AM. They are AM times in the morning. Now from 12 midday, when the sun begins to rise to its peak, from 12 midday up until going again towards 12 in the midnight again, that we call that time PM. Okay, once it is 12 in the midnight exactly, AM starts again. Once it is 12 midday, PM starts again. So AM is between 12 in the midnight to 1 minute before 12 midday. Then PM is from that 12 midday up until 1 minute before 12 again in the midnight. So take note of this, okay? The first 12 hours are AM and the second 12 hours are PM. The 12 and 24-hour time. You know that I have two clocks here. The first clock is 1 to 12. That's the regular clock we mostly usually have. And the second one shows 24 hours. 1 to 12, then 13 to 24. Now, please take note, the 1 to 12 time also reads 24 hours. It can count for 24 hours. But how? It's going to move 2 times. Because there are 24 hours in a day, the first 12 hours will count from 12 in the midnight, like I said to you, up until 1 minute to 12 noon or 12 midday. Then by 12 midday again, the time starts counting the next 12 hours up until 1 minute before another 12 midnight. So the clock will count 2 times for the 12-hour clock. But for the 24-hour clock, it counts just once. There are 24 hours in a day. So when it is 12 in the midnight, 24-hour clock will read 0000. We call it the 0 hour because it is a time when one day ends and another day starts. Okay, that's why we call it the 0 hour. So if the 12-hour clock is saying 12 a.m., it means the 24-hour clock will say 0000. That's going to be the time. That's the 0 hour. Please don't forget this. Then when it moves to 1 a.m., that's the first hour of the day. The 24-hour clock will also say 1 a.m. or 1 hour. When it is 2 a.m. on the 12-hour clock, the 24-hour clock will also say 2 hours because that's the second hour of the day. Now, when it gets to 6 a.m. in the morning, that is the 6th hour of the day. Probably at that time, you're preparing to go to school. By 6 a.m. is the 6th hour of the day. So the 24-hour clock will say 6 hours. Okay? Now, it goes on and on like that up until 12 midday. By 12 midday, The 12-hour clock will say 12 p.m. The 24-hour clock will also say what? 12 hours. That is half of the day. But now, by the time we move into the 13th hour of the day, the 12-hour clock now will move to 1 p.m. Remember, we've been looking at 12 a.m. till we got to 12 p.m. Now, it is the second 12 hours of the day. 12-hour clock will say 1 p.m. That is the second one for the day. The first one was a.m. That's the first hour of the day. The second one for the day is the 13th hour of the day. But 12-hour clock will say 1 p.m. But what will the 24-hour clock say? 13 hours, because now it's the 13th hour of the day. If it is 4 p.m., the 12-hour clock will say 4 p.m., but the 24-hour clock will say 16 hours. Can you see that on the 24-hour clock? It will say 16 hours because it is the 16th hour of the day. And by now we have 8 hours more for the day to be completed. Now, when it gets to 9 p.m. in the night, probably that's your bedtime, 9 p.m. will read 21 hours because that's the 21st hour of the day. So the 24-hour clock will read the time by the hour of the day, while the 12-hour clock will read in a.m. and p.m. because it has to go 2 times. So the first round will be a.m. and the second round will be p.m. Okay, so when you're comparing 12 and 24-hour time, always take note of the a.m. and p.m. When the clock is going on the second round of p.m. for the 12-hour clock, the 24-hour clock will be reading 13, 14, 15, 16 by that time. Okay, all right then. Now the 24-hour time reads in 100 hours in words. For example, when it is 2 p.m., what time will it be on the 24-hour clock? It's already, the 12-hour clock is saying 2 p.m. That means it's on the second round of 12s for the day. It has completed the first round and now it is on the second round by 2 hours. So on the 24-hour clock, it means it is the 14th hour of the day. So 24-hour clock will say 1400 hours. Okay, that's how it is being read. 1400, 1400 hours. In digits, it will write as 1400, and in words, it's called 1400 hours. Now, students, let's try to see how to fill in the 12 and 24-hour time equivalents. Remember that the 24-hour time is written by the actual hour of the day. Okay, like when it is the 13th hour, 24-hour clock says 1300 hours. Okay, when it is the first hour of the day, the 24-hour clock says 100 hour. That means it is a.m. Remember, I said to you that the first 12 hours is a.m. and the second 12 is p.m. Now let's see this. We have 24-hour time saying 12 a.m. For 12 a.m., what will the time be? It's 12 a.m., remember? That's in the midnight. So what will the 24-hour time be? Certainly, it is 00 hours or 24 hours. A time when the day ends and another day begins. 24-hour has been completed. Now, let's see. The 24-hour time now says 6:30 hours. What does that mean? It means this is the 6th hour and 30th minute of the day. 6th hour and 30th minute of the day. It means it is a.m. And the 12-hour clock will say 6:30 a.m. What about 12:36 hours? It means we are in the 12th hour, 36th minutes of the day. What does this tell you? Remember, I said to you that the midday starts from 12. Midday starts from 12. Now, what will the time be in 12-hour clock? It has passed midday by 36 minutes. So, the time will be 12:36 p.m. Now we are on the second 12 hours of the day. PM has started. This says 9:21 p.m. Still, we're on the second 12 hours of the day. That means 24-hour clock will read it as the hour of the day. We have gone 9 hours 21 minutes into the second half. That means it's going to be 9 plus 12. That's first 12 hours. 21 hours. That's 21 hours. Then what about 1 a.m.? 1 a.m. means we're on the first hour of the day, and the 24-hour clock is going to read it as 1 hour. I hope you understand the 12 and 24-hour time better now. Right, students, please click on the second link and let's see the concluding part of the lesson.